The mission to Xanthian Relay Station HFY was supposed to take 4 hours. It took 11 minutes before everything went wrong. The intelligence had been clean. 3 days of surveillance, 2 independent source confirmations, a route analysis that the team's senior navigator had signed off on with a confidence rating of 94%. For operatives in, extraction codes pulled from the relay station's secondary archive, for operatives out before the Xanthian watch rotation completed its cycle. Textbook. What the intelligence had not accounted for was the Xanthian 3rd Security Detachment running an unscheduled sweep of the relay station's outer perimeter, because the 3rd Security Detachment had received a tip from an informant whose existence was not in any cooperative intelligence file, and the sweep had started 12 minutes before Jordan's team made entry. They hit the first checkpoint at the wrong moment by 40 seconds. 40 seconds. Wren went down at the first checkpoint, stunned, not dead, which Jordan noted and filed. Call and Sova broke left on the extraction protocol, and Jordan covered their retreat for 90 seconds that cost him the window he needed. And then the second security element came around the eastern corner, and the math stopped working, and Jordan made the calculation that 4 operatives captured was worse than 3 operatives extracted and 1 captured. And he let them go and turned to face what was coming. He put his hands up before they reached him. Not because he had given up, because hands up meant they came close, and close meant options, and Jordan Hayes did not stop having options until he was unconscious or dead, and he was neither. He counted 11 soldiers in the 2 elements that converged on him. He noted their equipment, their formation discipline, their communication patterns. He noted the layout of the relay station's outer structure as they moved him through it, the guard post positions, the door mechanisms, the cycle time on the security lighting. He noted all of it with the same quality of attention he brought to maintenance logs and forest terrain and tactical displays, completely from the inside. He was in Xanthian custody for 4 minutes before he started building the escape. It took him 9 days to finish it. The Xanthian intelligence facility on HFY was underground, which was standard for Xanthian secure installations. 3 levels below the relay station's surface structure, carved out of the bedrock of a moon that had no atmosphere and no name in the cooperative's registry, and was therefore, from a certain practical standpoint, somewhere that did not officially exist. Jordan's cell was on the 2nd level, 4 meters by 4 meters, solid construction, a single door with a mechanism he had identified as a Koroth-manufactured magnetic lock on the first day when they brought him his first meal, and he had 8 seconds to study the door before it closed. The cell had a cot, a sanitation unit, a water dispenser, and a light that never changed, which was a deliberate disorientation technique that Jordan recognized and adjusted for by counting his own heartbeats to maintain time orientation. They left him alone for 2 days. This was also deliberate. Isolation before interrogation was standard practice across most military intelligence traditions. Let the subject sit with uncertainty. Let the imagination do the work the interrogators had not started yet. Let the silence become its own kind of pressure. Jordan used the 2 days. He slept in precise intervals, enough to maintain cognitive function without losing track of time. He exercised in the cell's limited space, systematically, because physical condition was a resource and resources required maintenance. He went over everything he had observed from the moment of capture to the moment the cell door closed, cataloging it, building the facility's layout in his mind from fragments, filling in gaps with inference and probability. By the end of day 2, he had a working model of the facility that he estimated was 68% accurate. He needed it to be higher. He needed the interrogator to help him with the rest. Her name, he learned on day 3, was Vasht. She was Xanthian, which meant she was taller than him by approximately 30 centimeters, with the gray-blue coloring of her species' northern caste and the secondary eyelid that Xanthians used in low-light conditions. She was not young. Her rank insignia, which he read on her collar before she sat down, put her at the equivalent of a senior intelligence officer, 15 or 20 years of service minimum. She moved with the economical precision of someone who had been doing a specific job for a long time and had stripped everything unnecessary out of the way she did it. She sat across the table from him and put a recording device between them and looked at him for a long moment without speaking. Jordan looked back. This was the opening. The silence was the opening. It was designed to create discomfort, to make the subject fill the space, to generate the first data point of the interrogation before a single question had been asked. Jordan had read about it. He had thought about what he would do if he were ever in this position, and he had decided, well before this moment, that what he would do was nothing. He would sit and he would look back and he would wait, because patience was something he had in quantity and the interrogator had a schedule and he did not. Vasht broke first, not by much. 40 seconds, which was a long time in an interrogation opening, long enough that Jordan noted it as a data point about her. She was disciplined. She was also, underneath the discipline, curious. The 40 seconds had not been strategic patience. It had been genuine assessment. She had been reading him the way he had been reading her. "You are the first human I have interrogated," she said. Her standard was excellent, barely accented. "I know," Jordan said. She looked at him. "How do you know?" "The 2 days before you came in. Standard pre-interrogation isolation. But you left me a cot with the orientation perpendicular to the door instead of parallel, which is non-standard. Someone changed the default setup. Someone who wanted to see how I arranged my sleeping space relative to the entrance. That is the question of someone building a baseline on an unfamiliar subject, not running a standard protocol." He paused. "You have been studying me since I arrived." Vasht looked at him for a moment. Something moved behind her secondary eyelid. "You noticed the cot orientation?" she said. "I notice most things." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What else did you notice?" Jordan considered how much to give her. He gave her enough to be interesting without being useful. "Your facility has a pressure differential between the second and third levels. The door seals differently when it opens inward versus outward, which means the third level is either climate controlled to a different standard or has a different atmospheric composition entirely. The guard rotation on this level runs on a 40-minute cycle, not the standard 30, which means either you are understaffed or you assess the second level as lower risk than standard protocol requires. The lighting in this cell is fixed at a spectrum that suppresses melatonin production in most cooperative species. It is not suppressing mine, because human melatonin response is regulated by circadian rhythm more than light spectrum, which means your disorientation protocol is not working the way you intended." The room was very quiet. Vasht looked at him with an expression he was learning to read. She had started this conversation with the professional composure of someone in complete control of a familiar situation. That composure was still present, but something had shifted underneath it, the specific quality of a framework being revised in real time, and she was not entirely certain how to feel about it. "You have been analyzing my facility," she said. "I have been analyzing everything," Jordan said. "I do not know how to stop." She looked at him for a long time. Then she reached forward and turned off the recording device. Jordan noted this. He noted everything. The interrogation sessions ran twice daily, morning and evening by Jordan's heartbeat count. Vasht ran all of them personally, which told him something about her investment in what she was learning. She had a structure, a set of questions she worked through methodically, intelligence priorities about cooperative operations, personnel, tactical doctrine, the things Xanthian intelligence wanted from a captured cooperative operative. Jordan did not answer those questions. He was not hostile about it. He simply did not answer them. The way you do not answer a question that exists in a different conversation from the one you are having. He deflected with precision, giving her nothing useful while making the deflection itself interesting enough that she kept coming back. What he did instead was ask questions of his own. This was not standard prisoner behavior, and Vasht knew it. On the third session, she told him directly that he was not in a position to be conducting an inquiry. Jordan acknowledged this and asked his next question anyway, because acknowledging a constraint and accepting it were different things. He asked about Xanthian military doctrine, about their facility design philosophy, about the pressure differential between levels 2 and 3 that he had mentioned on the first day, about the guard rotation and why 40 minutes instead of 30. He asked the questions the way he asked questions at the academy, with the specific quality of someone who was going to find out one way or another and was offering the other person the opportunity to be part of the finding out. Vasht answered some of them, not the sensitive ones, but more than she had intended to, because the questions were good and good questions have a pull to them that is difficult to resist when you are a being who has spent 20 years in intelligence work and fundamentally values the quality of a well-constructed inquiry. By day 5, Jordan's model of the facility was 83% complete. By day 7, it was 91%. He needed one more thing. On day 8, Vasht came in for the morning session and sat down and did not turn on the recording device at all. Jordan noted this. She looked at him across the table for a moment. She said, "I want to ask you something outside the formal process." "All right," Jordan said. "Why are you not afraid?" Jordan looked at her. "I did not say I was not afraid. You show no indicators. I have interrogated over 200 subjects across 11 species. Fear has physiological signatures that are largely consistent across oxygen-breathing biology. Elevated cortisol, altered respiration, micro-expressions around the orbital muscles. You have none of them." "I have all of them," Jordan said. "I am managing them." Vasht was quiet for a moment. "How?" Jordan thought about how to answer this. He said, "Fear is information. It tells you the situation is serious. I already know the situation is serious. So the fear is not adding anything to my picture that I do not already have. Once information stops being new, it stops requiring the same processing load." Vasht looked at him with the expression he had come to recognize as her version of being genuinely unsettled. She was a 20-year intelligence professional, and she was genuinely unsettled, and she was aware of it, and could not fully correct for it, which was itself unsettling her further. "What are you afraid of?" she said. "Specifically." Jordan considered the question honestly. "That my model of your facility has errors I have not identified," he said. "That the gap between 91% and 100% contains something I have not accounted for." The room was very quiet. Vasht said, very carefully, "Your model of my facility." "Yes. You have been building a model of this facility since the first 4 minutes after capture," Jordan said. "I told you on day 1. I noticed most things." Vasht stood up. She stood up with the controlled urgency of someone who needed to do several things immediately and was prioritizing them in real time. She was good at that. Jordan had noticed. She said, "What is in the gap?" Jordan looked at her. He made a decision. He had been making decisions throughout this conversation, calibrated once, giving enough to keep the conversation alive and taking more than he gave each time. This was the last calibration he needed to make. "The third level," he said. "I know it exists. I know it has a different atmospheric composition. I know it is accessed from the Eastern Corridor Junction based on the pressure signature when that door opens. I do not know what is on it." Vasht looked at him for a long time. She said, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you turned off the recorder," Jordan said. "And because I think you already know I am going to leave this facility, and I think you are trying to decide whether to help me or stop me, and I think the answer to that depends on what I do with what I know." The room was very quiet for a very long time. Vasht said, "What is on the third level is not a threat to the cooperative." "I know," Jordan said. "If it were, the atmospheric composition would be filtered differently. What is on the third level is the facility's primary communication array, which means it is also where the access codes for this installation's emergency lockdown protocol are stored, because that is standard Xanthian facility architecture." Vasht sat back down. She looked at him with the expression that had moved through hostile and curious and unsettled and had arrived somewhere that did not have a clean name. It was the expression of a 20-year intelligence professional who had brought a subject in for interrogation and somewhere in 8 days had ended up on the other side of the table without entirely knowing how she got there. She said, "You are going to use the emergency lockdown." "Yes," Jordan said. "It will seal every door in the facility for 11 minutes while the system runs its diagnostic cycle," Jordan said, "before it resets and unlocks. 11 minutes is enough. The external doors seal as well." "The external doors seal from the inside," Jordan said, "which means the mechanism is on the interior face of the door, which means someone inside the facility can operate it manually during the lockdown cycle." Vasht looked at him. "You need the access codes." "I need the access codes," Jordan said. The room was quiet. Jordan looked at her steadily. He did not push. He had learned in 8 days of conversation that Vasht did not respond to pressure. She responded to logic and to quality of inquiry and to the specific pull of a well-constructed question. He had constructed this one over 9 days, and he let it sit in the room between them, and he waited. Vasht said, "If I give you those codes, I am committing treason." "Yes," Jordan said. "Why would I do that?" Jordan said, "Because you turned off the recorder on day 3. Because you have been asking me questions outside the formal process since day 5. Because you already know what I am going to do with what I know, and you have not stopped me. And because you are an intelligence professional who has spent 20 years studying species, and you have spent 8 days studying mine, and you have reached a conclusion about what humans are going to become in this galaxy, and you are deciding right now whether the Confederation's current position on that question is the right one. The room was very quiet for a very long time. Vasht reached into her uniform pocket. She put a small data chip on the table between them. She stood up. She walked to the door. She pressed the call panel and waited for the guard to open it from outside. Before the door opened, she said, without turning around, "The Eastern Corridor Junction. Third door on the left. The array room has a 12-second window between the guard's sweep and the next rotation." The door opened. She walked through it. Jordan looked at the data chip on the table. He picked it up. What happened in the next 40 minutes was not recorded on any official Xanthian security log because the emergency lockdown protocol, when activated, suspended all non-essential systems, including the security recording network for the duration of the diagnostic cycle. What the log showed was 11 minutes of system diagnostic data, and then a clean reset, and then the standard post-lockdown status report indicating all systems nominal and all personnel accounted for. What the logs did not show was Jordan Hayes moving through a sealed facility in 11 minutes with the specific efficiency of someone who had been building a map of it for 9 days and was now executing against that map with the full commitment of a being who had one shot and knew it. He had memorized the layout down to the timing of the guard rotation, the pressure differentials between corridors, the manual override positions on every external door between the third level and the surface. He moved through it the way he moved through Arena 7, not reacting to the environment, but executing against a model of the environment that he had built before he started moving. He reached the surface in 9 minutes and 40 seconds. He had 1 minute and 20 seconds of lockdown remaining when he cleared the external door and came out onto the surface of the unnamed moon under a sky full of stars that were not Earth stars. He had his team's extraction codes in his memory where he had stored them before the mission went wrong. He had the Xanthian facility's layout, its personnel roster, its communication protocols, and its access architecture in the same place. He activated his emergency beacon and sat down on the surface of the moon and looked at the stars and waited for extraction. The cooperative response team arrived in 3 hours and 40 minutes. They found Jordan Hayes sitting on the surface of a moon that was not supposed to exist, outside a facility that was not supposed to be there, in good physical condition with 11 days of beard growth and a data chip in his pocket that the intelligence division would spend the next 6 weeks analyzing. The team commander, a Velhari officer who had run 17 extraction operations, looked at Jordan for a long moment and said, "How did you get out?" Jordan said, "Conversation." The commander looked at the facility behind him. She looked at Jordan. She had 17 extractions in her file, and she had never said the following thing before, and she said it now. "I do not know what that means." "I know," Jordan said. He stood up and picked up his pack. "I will write it up in the debrief." He walked to the transport. The debrief report ran to 38 pages. The intelligence division read it 3 times. The section on facility layout, personnel, communication protocols, and access architecture was flagged and sent to 6 separate analytical teams with a note indicating that the quality and completeness of the intelligence gathered by a single operative during 11 days of captivity exceeded what 3 dedicated intelligence operations in the same theater had produced in the previous year. The section on the interrogation itself was flagged separately and sent to the division's behavioral analysis unit with a different note. The note said, "The subject developed a functional working relationship with his interrogator over 11 days and used that relationship to extract the access codes required for his escape. The interrogator is a 20-year Xanthian intelligence professional. Review the attached transcript and assess how this was achieved." The behavioral analysis unit reviewed the transcript. They spent 4 days on it. Their assessment ran to 19 pages. The summary conclusion was 1 paragraph. It said, "We cannot fully account for the dynamic that developed in this interrogation. What we can say is that the human subject treated the interrogation as a two-way exchange from the first session, gathered more information than he provided at every point in the conversation, and by day 8 had constructed a relationship with his interrogator in which she was making decisions that served his interests without, apparently, fully understanding how she had arrived at those decisions. We have reviewed the transcript looking for manipulation techniques from the standard literature. We did not find them. What we found instead was a quality of genuine attention and inquiry that appears to have been, in itself, The technique. The subject was not performing curiosity. He was curious. And 20 years of Xanthian intelligence training did not have a defense for it. The unit's lead analyst added a personal note at the bottom. It said, "I have been in behavioral analysis for 16 years. I have read thousands of interrogation transcripts. I have never read one where I finished uncertain about who was interrogating whom." She paused and then added one more line. "Start paying attention to humans. Not as a threat. As a question we do not know how to answer yet." Vasht report. Filed 11 days after the escape. Classified at maximum level. I am aware of what I did. I am aware of what it cost. I am filing this report because 20 years of service means I do not leave things unrecorded even when the recording is against my interests. The human was not what I expected. I expected fear and I found management. I expected deflection and I found inquiry. I expected a subject and I found something I do not have a word for in my language. He was in my facility for 11 days. In 11 days, he learned more about us than we learned about him. Not because he was cleverer, because he paid attention in a way that I have not encountered in 200 subjects across 11 species. The kind of attention that does not have an agenda behind it. That is simply what it is. I gave him the codes because by day 8 I had already understood what the Confederation's position on humans was going to cost us. Not in the short term. In the long term that intelligence professionals are supposed to be thinking about. I gave him the codes because a species that produces beings like this one is not a species you want as a permanent enemy. And I gave him the codes because he asked, and his question was the best question I have been asked in 20 years of this work. He asked if the answer to that question was the right one. I did not have a good answer. I still do not.